Welcome to the Customer Service University. This 12-part series equips CX professionals with the insights to excel in the industry. Join us as we unlock the secrets to becoming a leader in customer experience with guidance from top experts. Your journey to the top begins now. Welcome back to the final lesson. It's a huge honor today to be with the President and CEO of eTech Global Services. Of course, you've spoken to his experts throughout this entire journey. This episode today is going to be all about building an international team of integrated people and personalities and cultures, all on the foundation of servant leadership. Matt, it's so nice to have you here today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. It's an honor to be here and talk about something near and dear to my heart, servant leadership.
Well, Matt, with that said, I know you're a very busy person. Let's jump right into it. Let's talk about what is the servant leadership management philosophy. You exemplify this, but for the audience, what is it exactly?
We've defined it at eTech as, leaders are typically they're going to serve one or two people. They're either going to serve themselves or they're going to serve their team members. And a servant leader is focused on the team. They emphasize the growth and well-being of the team, of the company, of each other, in their community. So it really translates to prioritizing other people's needs. Not thinking any less of yourself or your own contributions or your own needs, because those are important as well, but it's prioritize the needs of your people and how do you empower and develop them to achieve incredible success. And when that happens, everybody wins. They win, your team wins, our company wins, our customers win, our shareholders win. There's a philosophical difference between being a servant leader and being a call center manager. We, 20 years ago, transitioned from a very top-down autocratic approach to management to what we call servant leadership and what exists today at eTech.
Matt, I'll tell you that in my travels around the world, I've met a lot of people and I've spoken to many who I admire. And I've learned some really key universal truths. And I'll bring it back to what I've discovered at eTech. I think it comes from your servant leadership, but it's this. Tell me how you respond to this, which is, I spoke to another gentleman named Sean, and he is a global influencer. He did 2 successful Silicon Valley startups and exited. So, in that environment, they're very cutthroat and they're ambitious and they're under a lot of pressure. But he was a survivor, I'll say, of Silicon Valley. And I asked him, because he's now doing a global product development company, and I said, Sean, what's the secret to innovation and success? What does a company have to have or invest in to be successful? And he said there's one thing that makes or breaks the success when it comes to innovation. And I was like, what is it? And I was expecting him to say something like artificial intelligence or buy-in from senior leadership or product market fit or something. But what he said to me, Matt, was, he said the number one most important thing for innovation to happen is people have to feel safe, because people who don't feel safe don't change. And that really hit me. And what I've experienced, because I've worked with your teams now in multiple countries, multiple roles in the organization, and this thing you said about caring about the other people serve themselves or serve other people, your business, everyone seems to genuinely care about the other person, which I think equates to people feel safe within your organization. That's why they respond faster. That's why they put their heart into things. That's why they care so much about the work they do, because they don't live in a state of fear. Does that factor into your ethos or your narrative there, or are you just straight up servant leadership the whole way?
I grew up in an environment back in the 80s when I got out of college and started working at a great company, but grew up in an environment where exactly that, you were stifled. Everything was so top-down driven, and you basically were told what to do, and you didn't question it. You did what you were told. And I believe it stifled creativity and it stifled collaboration because, you would come in and do what you're told. And if you just were not encouraged, you certainly weren't motivated to think out of the box. You were rewarded to act a certain way, talk a certain way, do things a certain way, period. And at that point in my life, it made a lot of sense, but I feared my first couple managers. I feared. And, my value at that point was all about my contributions statistically. It wasn't, and I had, even back then, I was always looking for better, faster, cheaper ways to do things, but I never felt empowered. I never felt that I was in a safe environment where I could step forward until very later in my career with Dun & Bradstreet. They went through a transformation in the 90s where they were one of the first ones to come out and have a diversity and inclusion initiative across the globe. And that's when I was introduced to diversity and inclusion training. And that kind of started shifting some of my leadership philosophy because, my first management job, I was very much, just hardcore and in your face. And, the thing is, as a servant leader, you don't want to lose your competitiveness. You don't want to lose your intensity. But when you lose control of your emotion and treat people in a way that's led by emotion, it's not a good thing. It can serve a purpose, a place and time, but people want to your point, people want to feel that they're valued, that their input matters, that they're safe, and that's what we've tried to instill within eTech is a place that people want to come to because they feel that they matter beyond did they hit their sales quota or they have a high percent of first call resolution or whatever the KPI is, that they matter beyond just the scoreboard, right? And when that happens, when you're able to get to that point, and it's not forced, but it truly is, and you've seen it throughout our organization, it's through all levels, really crazy things start happening in terms of innovation and collaboration and creativity. In our line of business, and you know this as well as anyone, you got to have great technology. You got to have great processes. Those are like non-negotiable. What separates a company like eTech is our people. And it's always been that. We strive to recruit, develop, retain great people at all levels of the corporation. It doesn't matter what your title is or what your role is. You're a leader at eTech. If you're the vice president of operations or you're a frontline team leader or you're a receptionist in one of our centers or you work in facilities, you're a leader in our company, and we equip you and we empower you and we expect you to be a problem solver, not just a problem identifier, but to solve problems proactively. And when we do that, great things happen. It happens for our company, it happens for our customers, and it happens in our communities. eTech we're known for our willingness and desire to involve ourselves in our communities, to give of our time and our talents to help other organizations, typically nonprofit organizations.
I appreciate that. And you touched on several things there.
Yeah.
Let me just ground us in a couple of those ideas, because this educational series culminating with you, and the reason I asked you to be here on this episode was because not all call centers are created equally, and they all serve different purposes. And you touched on wanting the involvement in your communities, the servant leadership. However, what I hope the audience learns from you and in your niche of the industry as eTech and providing call center services and solutions is this idea of you not only help your communities and help each other, but you're also favorable and friendly towards other BPOs. You support them in their journeys. You support the entire industry as well as your communities, as well as your people. And I just think that is so important for people who work in this industry to understand that does exist, that not everyone is a quota. And I love to expose the leadership that you have because you've extended it to multiple different countries and cultures. So I wanted to make sure that people get a sense of what the leadership can be. And so thank you for sharing that. Do you have any specific examples we can talk about where this style has had an impact on innovation and success?
There's been a lot of them in the last 20 plus years, but the biggest one that always jumps to mind is COVID and how we responded. We were 100% work from office, 4,000 employees across the globe working in the call center when COVID started to quickly spread. And within a matter of 3 weeks, we went from 100% of the workforce working at one of our call centers to 90% working from home. And that was done not by me. I mean, that was a pure, when you talk about a collaborative, innovative, people rolling up their sleeves in India, we were filling up busloads full of IT equipment, agents, customer service reps, HR, everyone rolling their sleeves up, putting the computers into these buses and taking them out to people's houses, making sure they had the bandwidth and everything that they needed to work effectively from their home. It was amazing for me to sit back and watch this. Ultimately, I made the decision with the executive team. I'm like, look, this is coming. It's not going to be stopped. We cannot expose our employees and make them come into the office. We've got to find a way to be there. I said, what's most important to me is the livelihood and the health of our people, the continuity with our customers, and just being there for each other. And they embraced that. We had IT, obviously you had to have IT, HR, operations all working together. Imagine trying to, over a 3-week period, moving 4,000 people to work from home. It was crazy, especially in India and Jamaica. The challenges there are a lot different than what we faced in the United States. But it's crazy because that happened, and I was getting emails from parents in India thanking me for doing what we did to allow their son or daughter to be able to continue to draw a salary and be safe and not have to leave the security of their home to go out. It was bad in India, COVID, they pretty much were on lockdown. But we were ahead of that. Before they locked the country down, we had already made the move. A lot of companies didn't. They were dragging their feet. And again, that is the prime example of everybody came together. Nobody was like, well, that's not my job to break down a computer and put it in their bus. Everybody jumped in because they understood what this meant to each other, to be able to have an income and a livelihood through these difficult times, to be safe and not have to worry about having to go out and be exposed to the virus, and then to be in there for our customers. And so many, as you know, so many BPO companies struggled during the pandemic and had a difficult time being there for their customers. We actually had our best couple years in the first 2 years of the pandemic ever, and that really is the biggest thing that comes to mind when we talk about give me an example of when servant leadership really came to the forefront at eTech. And then the other example I share all the time is when, back in 2017, when I unfortunately got very sick, ended up in the hospital in a coma for 2 months, in the hospital for 6 months. And to see the team and hear the stories afterwards of, our executive team, Kayleen and Jim and Veronica and Chandra and Ronnie, and everything they went through to keep us doing what we needed to do, and such a concern and compassion for my family as they were not sure whether I was going to make it or not. But to see them, just to see that selfless approach to them taking charge of the company and doing it out of pure love for each other and for me and my family, that stuff's real. You can't make that stuff up.
It's so nice when teamwork comes to bear like that. And it is a cultural influence that you've certainly planted there. But let's move on to talk about the business of the call center. I had 2 different conversations yesterday with different people talking about the impact of AI on the call center. And the conversation in both instances quickly moved to how the atmosphere or the culture or the mood of a call center can sort of be precipitous like weather. That if you have a call center supervisor who goes down the row and listens to one call at a time, they might not get a clear bead on the weather. Just like if you look out and you see it's raining and you assume it's just going to rain forever, you make certain decisions. And they were talking about how the weather patterns of the call center affect the KPIs of the call center and of the client. And I bring that up because I think that this servant leadership or this culture, this ethos that you have creates this sort of sunshine amongst the people. And it does have a business effect. I mean, we've talked about the safety and whatnot, but what is the quantifiable, from your perspective as a president and CEO, what is the impact of happiness or safety, emotional security in the call center? How does that translate into business positivity?
I mean, the biggest things are when you have that sort of environment where people feel valued and included and safe, they want to stay. They want to feel like they're part of something bigger than just their paycheck, right? And what we've seen is, as we got into this journey, is we've seen agent retention and team leader retention improve. You've been in this industry a long time. Look, the biggest thing is, especially in today's world with how complex our calls are getting, and the machine is doing more and more of the easy stuff. So where the people are having to get involved is where the machines have failed. And now the customer's at the end of their wits and they want to talk to a live person, right? And here you are. Well, to prepare an individual to be able to provide, just best in class service at that point in the customer's journey is an investment in the knowledge and skills and the empathy, the soft skills and the hard skills. Well, when you invest 6 weeks, 8 weeks in developing somebody, you want to make sure you're going to keep them and keep them around. And typically the longer, you know how it is, the longer a person is in a certain position, does the job, the more efficient and better they perform. And we have KPIs that document the journey of when do you get a person, when do you recoup your investment in training that individual to get to here, to where they're breaking even, and then to get to here where they're contributing back to the profitability of the company. We don't focus on those things with our people. We focus on journey, right? We don't focus on the P&L, the individual P&L, but certainly as the CEO and as the board that I report to, those are things we have to look at. And so I can draw a very clear line that when we've embraced servant leadership into the e-tech culture, and I mean, it's a journey, a never-ending journey. It's not like we'll never be there. It's a journey, right? And I can draw a clear line into the performance and the profitability of e-tech when we began this leadership journey. So if you're creating an environment, again, that fosters creativity and fosters collaboration, people feel safe and included, you're going to create a loyal team environment where people are going to want to stick around. One of the things is someone said to me, well, why do you do so much in the community? And I'm like, well, here's the way I look at it. When we're out there recruiting, I know the best people we ever recruited are not people that are out there necessarily looking for a job. They're not looking for a job, but what happens is they see e-tech in all of our splendor at a community event. We're out there just having a blast, having a good time, wearing our e-tech apparel, giving back. And, we've had people say, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of something like that. Why doesn't my company do more like that? And so you're out there, when you're giving back to the community because it's important to give back. Again, from a business perspective, there's a tangible benefit from being out there doing that. Same thing within the industry. I often, years ago, would struggle with Jim. I'm like, Jim, you're giving away all of our trade secrets. You go to these trade shows and you're giving everyone the secret sauce. And he'd be like, no, man, that's going to all come back in return in tenfold. And it does, and it has. And so it's the same concept when it comes to the servant leadership. And can it be tied into into the sustainable improvement in KPIs? And the answer is yes. And we've done that.
I love that. Let's talk about some of the challenges. If I'm a leader, I'm watching this episode and I think, you know what? Maybe there's something to it. What are the challenges of transforming a culture that's been top down into this more teamwork, servant leadership environment?
That's a great question. There were challenges. Number one, first of all, you got to have the buy-in from the executive team, depending on how big your company is, the board or the shareholders. You can't, if you're not going to have the support from the top down, even though it's not a top-down driven initiative. It starts there, but you got to have the support. You got to realize also you're going to lose some leaders along the way that they don't get it. They don't believe in it. They don't buy into it. It doesn't work for them. And you're going to lose some. And we did. We've lost some good folks over the years. And then the other thing is, you got to walk the talk, which is the biggest thing. you can't say, we're going to embrace these qualities of what it means to be a servant leader. We're going to operate with integrity. We're going to value people. We're going to have a positive approach. You can't say these things and try to instill these things into your leadership curriculum if you aren't walking that walk, if you aren't leading with integrity. If I don't follow through and do what I say I'm going to do every single time, then I'm not leading with integrity. A leader of integrity does what they say they're going to do every time, not 90% of the time, every time. They do it when everyone's watching, they do it when no one's watching. The quickest way to lose your ability to influence as a leader is to operate in a gray area or outside the walls of integrity. So, if you begin this journey and you compromise, you say this is the type of company that we want to be, and this is a leadership culture that we want, you got to make sure you have buy-in. You got to realize you're going to lose some folks along the way that just aren't going to be comfortable going on that journey with you. And you got to be 100% committed to walking that walk every day and not just talking the talk, not just putting a vision or mission statement up in the conference room but never even referring to it. You got to live out your leadership mission and vision. And that's what we've done. And eTech is just blessed with leaders throughout the organization, and you've been exposed to a lot of them, that they are bought in 150% to this leadership philosophy. And it makes everything just so much better when you have people that embrace it and believe it because they see the impact that it's had. We've been doing this enough now where there's so many stories out there that each one of us can share. And I'm not just talking to feel-good stories, there's thousands of them. But when you have customers coming to us and validating what we believe and what we think we're doing, and they're validating it with their words and their actions, that's powerful.
Matt, I'll just say, because one of the things that I try to do in my exploration of these stories is I try to uncover truths or insights about the industry that normally someone could not Google. And I look for proof points, and I do this with every organization that I work with and every story that I cover. And you've said so many things, but if I'm the viewer, maybe I say, well, Matt's the CEO, he's going to have this talk track. What I would say is, because I've been inside your organization, I've interviewed your agents, your team leads, your senior management. I've interviewed people from all over the world who work for you. And when you talk about integrity as an important component to leadership and walking the walk, what I also think is that this integrity, it's really hard to identify across the board or pick it out in one person right off the bat. And what I will say is, what I've noticed about the truth of your organization is there is a distinct type of transparency at eTech that doesn't exist throughout the entire industry, because I've been around the world now in call centers everywhere, and you have a level of transparency and trust across your teammates that no one feels like they have to hide something or protect a particular party line. I would say is your team is the first one to say they either know something or they don't know something, and they come to it from a place of integrity. And I wanted to say that because the transparency that people feel in their offices often has to do with the percentage of integrity that's surrounding them. So that's my own. Go ahead.
That's great. I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing that. Another perfect example, AI right now. It's not to be feared. It's something to be understood, and it's a technology, obviously, that's going to play a role in future generations. It's our job to understand it, to educate our people about it, to become AI experts ourselves, as we are, and to find ways to integrate the technology with our people so they don't fear it. They're not afraid of it. They understand it. They get it. They understand the value that it can bring, and they understand that the human component is always going to have a role. That role is going to obviously continue to evolve, but the human element of our industry is always going to be there. Machines aren't going to be able to do everything. But if you don't talk about it, if you don't admit where you're not sure, when you don't talk about things with your people and there's a silence, they're going to fill that silence, whatever they read on the internet whatever, whatever podcast or they watch, or, if you're not communicating with them, they're going to fill the communication gaps. That's why it's important that we be out there and we be consistent and we communicate with integrity. We're transparent and we don't know something, but we're in it together, But
Matt,
AI is another perfect example right now because I don't have all the answers. None of us do,
It's such a perfect way to sort of wrap up this whole entire effort of mine to bring you on the show to teach this lesson, which is you extend the servant leadership even out to artificial intelligence. You're still inclusive, you're still transparent. It is something that just comes from you and radiates outward. My real last question, because I know your time's valuable, I'd love to just finish with, looking back over your career, what do you hope your legacy will be with regard to leadership and innovation within the call center industry?
If you would ask me this question 20 years ago, my answer would have been totally different. First of all, we're all going to leave a legacy. It's the question is, what do you want that legacy to be? And I just hope that people will look at ETech and Matt Rocco and think that when they think of servant leadership, and they think of servant leadership not only in what it meant in terms of helping to transform lives, but also the impact that it can have to the success of a business and a more fulfilling work experience outside of just, the blocking and tackling of doing your job. And, I would have never understood this, like I said, 20 years ago, of where we are now. And that's what I hope. When my days are done, people will look back and say, ETech was a pioneer in integrating servant leadership into the BPO industry, and that's backed up by not only the impact that we've had on countless number of lives over the years across the world, but also on the substantial track record and success of the business and satisfaction of our customers and the satisfaction that our communities had having ETech as a corporate partner within the communities. And, I know especially in the smaller communities we're very critical to the local business community. It's a little bit more difficult in like a Dallas or San Antonio, but, certainly in the smaller communities that we're in East Texas, even in India, Montego Bay, those jobs and how we run business and how we serve is very well received and very important in those communities that we're in. So that's what I hope my legacy will be, and ETech's legacy. And I hope it continues long after I'm gone.
Matt, I will say that it's been a pleasure to have you wrap up this 12-part series with this thinking and knowledge and wisdom about servant leadership and its importance to the lives of agents, the benefits to the culture and the performance of serving businesses who leverage call centers, and also building a model for the BPO industry. And I would just say you truly embody the idea that teamwork makes the dream work. And it's just been a pleasure to wrap up this series with you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you and all that you do.
Thank you for joining us for this Customer Service University lesson. Discover how QEval can enhance your operations with real-time analytics, predictive insights, and comprehensive quality management. Visit QEvalPro.com/learn to connect with our experts and exclusive support.